Part 1, A Legacy of Steel. Chapter 1, HMS Themistoclis. It was barely an audible whisper. Captain Leonidas Stone fixed his communications officer an inquisitive stare. "A-OK on the comm link, sir," explained Lieutenant Joan Walsh. Whoever just hailed was simply out of breath. Captain Stone stared about the command bridge of his stellar dreadnought as though searching for competence. The starkness of the black granite surfaces and the well-disguised comfort of the navy blue velvet upholsteries, however, offered precious little reflection. The massive chamber was a place of darkness, broken only by the bluish light of instrument panels and holographic monitors. It felt like space itself, if comfortably warm. "Any other inbound communique?" he inquired. Joan studied her holoscreen. Fingering into prominence the required wave display, she followed standard procedure by first studying the resonance time graph relative to the period in which the communique was received. A simple task considering she was aboard a stellar dreadnought. Onboard supercomputers chronologically stored all communique transmitted and received to the extent that as communications officer, Joan could, if necessary, recall the entire communicative history of the 877 communique. Joan was satisfied with the integrity of the comlink. The Galactic Anthropic Imperial Armada, GAIA, transponder signature of a fuzzy line uniformly interrupted by a pulse every 10 milliseconds standard Earth time, set, verified authenticity. Joan's heart skipped a beat a short moment later. The fuzzy line ran exactly 1.467 seconds before spiking into bold life. The visual display of an increase in energy was expected. It signified the power used to carry the message. What had Joan reaching for the crucifix about her neck was what happened at 3.666 seconds, when the message was lost. "What's wrong, Joan?" Captain Stone asked. How like a man, Joan wondered. Due to the obsolete layout of the command bridge, the view afforded the captain's chair provided a profile view of the communications officer at best. Though to address her captain all Joan needed was turn her head, she could not simultaneously face him and her holoscreen, no such problem on a modern cruiser. So why was it, Joan wondered, that her captain could read her current distress so accurately, and yet remain oblivious to her amorous feelings towards him? "Sir," she began tentatively, swiveling in her deep chair so as to face her superior, "please bear with me. Long-range particle resonance communications were only perfected towards the end of the Galactic War, as you probably well know. During the Second Galaxy War, communications officers began to notice frequently occurring spikes in their particle resonance wave display histories. Eventually, a Tau Ceti communications officer by the name of Yuri Selenko solved himself. Though perhaps expedience would be a trait far better suited to a bridge officer than enthusiasm, he fell prey to Lieutenant Walsh's genuine love of her station. She would feverishly discuss the topic of communications with anyone polite enough to listen. He almost broke out into laughter at the sudden memory of Joan's private book collection. A nostalgic at heart, she kept actual paper and ink copies of her favorite publications. The pride of her collection, as she had so enthusiastically announced to him during an awkward dinner date, was a 1,300-page hardbound text called Communications, From Cave Women to Split Particle Resonance Chambers. Fixing the blue-eyed beauty and urgent expression, Captain Stone hoped Joan might soon reach her point. "Well," Joan continued, confusing her captain's smirk as encouragement, "it turns out that when a broadcasting ship gets destroyed, so long as it is transmitting at the time of an explosive destruction, its transmission cuts out with a massive spike, kind of like a permanent full stop. This anomaly was only really noticed because of the sheer amount of destruction rendered in the war. In fact, there were 3,672 recorded cases. Do you know how many cases of destruction while broadcasting the Galactic Astronaval Archives have recorded in the centuries of peace since? Just 17, including the one just now." Captain Stone clenched his fist. "Joan, clear up that message pronto. I need to know exactly what message that dying ship was trying to send." Regarding the tall Japanese woman seated upon the command deck 2 stations to his left, Captain Stone addressed his highly educated navigation finishes with that message, coordinate your efforts in finding me that signal's point and time of origin. Launch the long-range scanners and keep an eye glued to your ladder. Report any solid objects passing into battle range. Let's assume the worst, people," he added in a louder voice so as to be heard throughout the bridge. Executive Officer Noel Templeton stood incredulously. Scanning his captain's features for any signs of jest, he turned away and coughed into his hand, hiding his fear at the possibility that before his very eyes, a possible situation was unfolding. His only superior officer aboard the HMS Themistoclis was issuing the orders of a man preparing for war. A ridiculous thought considering there had been no astro-naval engagements in nearly a millennium. When he had left the bright sunny world of Britonica as a wide-eyed sandy-haired teenaged astronaval recruit, Noel had never considered the possibility of his chosen career actually becoming dangerous. After all, that was why one joined Gaia. Though relentless wars still plagued humanity across countless worlds throughout the galaxy, they as a rule stayed on world. The stalemate peace accord had inadvertently assured as such. Whereas worlds and alliances of worlds prior the war generally maintained their own sovereign astro fleets, they never again wielded such freedom of power beyond the war. Half of all surviving space-worthy military vessels amidst the Gaia signatory worlds, from wherever in the galaxy they originated, were united under the singular banner of the Galactic Anthropic Imperial Armada. Gaia was set up as a sovereign entity, its jurisdiction was space, and its base of operations was the tired old planet of humanity's origin, Earth. Ruled from the top by an autocratic emperor, Gaia became a giant police force ensuring humanity's civil conflicts remained confined to just planetary proportions. Joining Gaia was the safest wager against being drafted into some stupid on-world war over uranium, water, land or fringe rights. And yet here I stand, thought a despondent Noel Templeton, on the brink of actual conflict? It simply wasn't fair. Wishful thinking getting the better of him, he attempted to allay his fears. "Captain," he began, his accent snobbish even for a Britonican, "certainly we're overreacting? Officer Jones' assessment is circumstantial at best. I mean, we're in the Dragon sector, as far from civilization as anyone has ever been. I must recommend refraining from long-range scanning so as not to stress our Dyson conduits unnecessarily." Recommendation noted, Captain Stone offered dismissively. "Now get on the horn and make sure every ranking officer on this boat is out of his rack." Seeing his second-in-command about to complain on behalf of the sleeping officers in question, Captain Stone reiterated, "I want them up and ready." Noel, executive officer, at least knew how to take an order. Captain Stone leant back in his outrageously comfortable chair and absorbed another view of his command bridge. Though intimately familiar with the semicircular chamber, he studied it now through the eyes of a commander who might actually get to do something. He himself sat with his back almost against a wall, overlooking a large gloomy chamber, central to an arc-shaped command deck which numbered 9 stations in all. The arc was so shaped as to allow all members on the deck to clearly view the captain with little more than a quick turn of their head, even as they concentrated on the hollow screens immediately before them. Currently, Noel and Joan were doing just that. 1 meter below the command deck, spanning forwards, lay the majority of the command bridge. It resembled an ancient amphitheater of sorts. 2 concentric levels retreated from the elevated foot of the command deck. One such level was a large semicircle of some 60 stations. This sat stepped 1 meter above a lower level which was nothing more than a depressed circular floor pit some 11 meters in diameter. In full operation, all 60 stations would be manned and the coordination of their efforts would fall upon the shoulders of those sharing his command deck. Regarding his present command officers, Captain Stone took a moment to smile. As they worked feverishly at their stations, manipulating the projected prompts by running their fingers across the seemingly solid aspect of their respective hollow screens, Captain Stone couldn't help but enjoy the theater of the spectacle. How his command bridge must have looked, he wondered, all those centuries ago when the Themistoclis and its crew campaigned in the Second Galactic War. He knew his stellar dreadnought's log history very well. Constructed in the standard Earth year 9131 AD, His Majesty's Seraph C. Themistoclis was a battle carrier class J4 dreadnought. It fought not only Galactic War II, but in many of the less well-known peacetime wars. It was a dinosaur, an outdated testament to mankind's ability to pour an entire planet's wealth into the construction of massive overkill. With 999 confirmed kills to its credit, Captain Stone had long fantasized being the man to round the impressive figure to an even 1,000. In the 600 or so years since the stalemate peace accord, 13 captains had served aboard the Themistoclis. Of them, one was his great-grandfather, and another his father before him. Of the 38 captains who had ever served aboard the classic war vessel, only those last 13, one other and himself, shared in the humiliating statistic bare upon the mess hall honor board, for all to see. Whereas 23 captains shared in 999 kills, their names, the dates in which they served and their own kill tallies noted, Leonidas Stone was one of the 14 other captains whose kill tally column read blank cedar. 999 kills on that wooden plaque, and not in particular, held great significance, as only the HMS Drake had amassed more kills. Also still in operation, under its 22nd captain, Captain Suzanne Harper, the Drake boasted 1183 confirmed kills. Of course, being a J3 class, the Drake had a 50-year head start. However, Captain Stone could not begrudge the woman her slightly loftier post aboard GAIA's most celebrated capital ship. In fact, he knew the middle-aged woman very well. Suzanne, like himself, was a born fleet commander. Born at the wrong time. It was a shame the idea of recording a visual log of command decks at war only became procedure after the last major war had ceased. Certainly he had listened to countless hours of audio logs from the greatest battles in history, this in conjunction with visual logs of the actual results of those orders, massive, explosive, battle damage. But to actually see the command bridge in action, Captain Stone consoled himself, perhaps that chance might just arise? Sweet Jesus, whispered a mortified Lieutenant Joan Walsh. Removing her headphones, she slid her finger across the hollow screen before her. Captain, I filtered the message. You better just listen. Pressing at a non-existent play button of holographic light, Joan leaned back and turned to regard her captain as the message played out over the command bridge's main intercom. It was barely an audible whisper, a whisper destined to be heard throughout the galaxy. SOS SOS. This is the F2 class exploratory vessel Persephone, bearing 200-2987, 4 light months from GN Gate 00125-92 Dragon Sector, speed constant 0.232 light. We are not alone in the universe. We have found an advanced, intelligent life form. They are not us, and they are